June 28th, 2020 garden tour for this week. We're gonna shake it up a little bit. We're gonna start at the Melon Patch. I wanted to show you how much growth has been made on these watermelon, the 3 watermelon right over there. They're really starting to reach, so I'm gonna have to turn them. I turned that one over there the other day because he was trying to get out of the fence, and I would really like to contain these as much as possible. So when they start to get close to the fence, I'll just go ahead and turn them. The cantaloupe are also doing well. Not as big as the watermelon yet, but that's okay. We've got plenty of summertime left. And then we're gonna take a look at the Kjarees because we've got a project to do with them today. The watermelon are starting to get some blooms. That'll be blossoming here probably just in the next few days. There is a couple right there that are already starting to try to open. More over here. This patch is just going to be full of vines, leaves, watermelon. Let's go ahead and get him turned so that he doesn't try to grow out of the fence. Really pleased with the growth and progress of these. As you can see, the Kjarees have gotten pretty big. They're starting to get really tall. The other two aren't quite there yet, but they'll get there. So this one here is very tall already, and it has some blooms trying to come on. They'll be blooming here pretty soon. The thing about Kjarees is they really do need some support. So we're gonna give them some support today. Train them to go up a trellis. We're gonna use these T-posts and this fencing. Same fencing that I have in the main garden with my tomatoes. And a couple of wire coat hangers to create a trellis for the Kjaree to climb on. It'll only take a few minutes to get this in. Okay, the Kjaree melons have a trellis fence now that they can climb on. And you can see that the fence is probably up about a foot from where they're at. And I'll train them to go up and they'll be supported. And I'll put some supports in here when the melons start to form so that they don't fall off before they ripen, because we want to get them. The onion pool is doing remarkably well. The onions are getting quite tall. Looks like a little bit of dieback, but I'm not sure if that means that they're ready. I haven't even dug around in there to see if they're big or not. I don't want to bother them, so I'll leave them go for a little bit longer, and then I'll do some checking. Green beans. Look at all of those blooms on these beans. Beautiful purple flowers, very thick, dense. We'll be getting a lot of green beans pretty soon. Our corn and our yellow squash in the tires is doing well. The corn has grown another 4 inches or so in the last week. Can't wait for some of that sweet corn. We're gonna do a little bit of harvesting today. We have a couple of ripe tomatoes from this early girl plant. The cat face one, and then the one that was turning, just blushing last week when I brought you through. I've been asked to try to show how I pick some of the produce out of my garden. Some people get worried that they're going to tear up their plants, so tomatoes are really easy. Take it right off. This cat face guy, I'm not sure about him. We will leave this one for a few more days. He's got some time. I have another tomato just beginning to blush. This plant is another early girl, so Be a few more days and we'll go ahead and pick that one. So excited that tomatoes are starting to come. We've also got clusters of tomatoes on some of these plants. This is the early girl. Most of the tomatoes are big enough now to shower hook them to the trellising fence for support. Okay, on one of these Abe Lincoln plants where I put the bag over the blooms before they blossomed, this one's ready to come off. I see that there's another bloom in there that hasn't started a baby tomato yet, but the other baby tomato in here is big enough that I think that the bag should come off. So it's as simple as just taking the bag off. We're gonna find our tomato. There he is. I'm gonna take a bread tie and tie him up. Marking that tomato ensures that I have the right tomato to save the seeds from. So far, this is the only tomato on this plant that has the true seed from the Abe Lincoln tomato plant, because I blocked off any cross-pollination with the bag. There's a lot of other tomatoes growing very well on this Abe Lincoln tomato. We'll have a lot of tomatoes to pick in the next week or so. Here's our other Abe Lincoln tomato that had the bag over some blossoms. Before I take that bag off, I have a couple of leaves I want to pull off. They're looking a little sickly. So you just pinch it right off. You don't want that on your plant, taking away energy from the growing process. So go ahead and take that stuff off when you see it. It looks like I ended up with 3 in that bag. So all 3 of those are marked now. I'll be able to save the seeds from these tomatoes. The last plant I need to take care of today, where the blossoms were covered, is this yellow pear. I'll go ahead and take that bag off and mark these tomatoes. All right, we've got him marked. The sweet peppers are finally starting to take off. Peppers are notoriously slower than tomato plants because peppers really need heat to grow, and it's just now starting to get consistently hot many days in a row. So they're finally going to take off, which is exciting. While we're out here harvesting this morning, I have some basil that I can take and put in the dehydrator. All you do is just pinch some off of the top. This encourages bushy growth. Give them a little haircut. I always grow my basil with my tomatoes because they're good partners, they're good friends, and it helps to deter off some of the bad pests. All right, looking at the big garden. Not from all the way back because I'm not all the way back, but I wanted to give you a shot of what it looked like. We've got some weather moving in, so I wanted to get this done before we got poured on. So as you know, I'm so excited about this cucumber bed. Look at how enormous those are getting. And they're starting to go up the trellis. I've been training them, so they're climbing. Also in this bed we have the tangerine watermelon, and they are growing. There's a couple of empty holes. I'll plug some seeds in there. The other watermelon, it looks like the pickling cucumbers have some blooms that are going to be ready to pop any day. Then we'll have some baby cucumbers coming. These are the slicing cucumbers, and they have some blooms that are starting to emerge. It's exciting. Right here is one of the 2 cucumber melons that I have. He needs to start being trained to go up the trellis. They start out slow, but once they get going, you'll have so many cucumber melons you won't know what to do with them. I wanted to show you progress on some of these potatoes. These that are dying back are the Yukon Gold. They'll be ready to dump. This is Sunday, so we're gonna do that on Thursday, July 2nd. That'll be fun. I'll be sure to film that and show you guys what we get in there. This carrot is really flowering and seeds are forming. So I'll be able to harvest these seeds and plant them next year. The front yard garden, this is the beefsteak. He has some baby tomatoes on him and a lot of blooms. I could put a bag over these blossoms before they bloom and save these seeds as well, and I might do that yet. I just didn't do it this first go around, but they should produce for weeks and weeks, so I've got plenty of time and opportunity to do that. Okay, we have got to talk about these zucchini. Remember this zucchini plant that I was gonna grow vertically? Last week I showed you that some of the male flowers were falling off and that I was worried about some of my female flowers, aka zucchini, not being pollinated. Well, that happened. They didn't get pollinated, so they're shriveling right there on the vine. And I noticed that the other day, but I didn't want to pick it off until I showed you what that looks like when a zucchini flower or squash flower does not get pollinated. They'll die right on the vine. It's got to be pollinated, whether that be naturally, if the male flower opens and pollinates the female flower, or you can hand pollinate. So this guy here, he's a male flower. And the way you tell that he's a male flower is because he does not have a zucchini attached to him. Where like this flower had a baby zucchini attached to her. So the male does not have a zucchini attached to him. So when he opens, he expels his pollen, which will then theoretically pollinate this flower, which is a female. But if they don't get pollinated, then you end up with this. Puny pepper. Guess what? Still puny. Remember this. This was my tiny little okra patch. I started out with 4. One of them didn't make it, and I'm down to 1. What happened was, you'll notice, there's no ground cover here. So guess what? Kitties are getting in. Yep, the cats. So I need to replant this week with ground cover. I'll show you that next week when I get it completed. Thankfully, Mr. Google Pants says that my growing area still has 99 days left in the growing season. Okra, Clemson spineless, only needs 56 days from seed to maturity, so there's still plenty of time to grow some, but how frustrating. This radish is seeding, and if you'll see these pods, this is what's going to dry up and create seed pods. They're actually kind of tasty if you taste one. Another look at another radish that isn't seed potting yet but has some blossoms, and those blossoms will turn into seed pods in a few days. Here are some bigger seed pods on this radish. I let several go to seed. These are cherry bell radishes. I'll be able to plant those seeds next year. Actually this fall if I wanted to, but definitely next year.